So, what is Blood Tribe? Well, Blood Tribe is, in my opinion, a PsyOp. Now, who's running the PsyOp? That's a question I haven't yet answered. I don't know if this is a PsyOp being run by the federal government, or the Trump administration, or Trump loyalists inside the federal government. What people don't understand about the federal government, okay, this is two things that people need to understand. We do not have an Islamic extremist problem. This could also be a PsyOp being run by Israel or the Mossad. We do not have an Islamic extremist issue in the United States, and we do not have a white supremacist issue inside the United States. What you have is you have a lot of feds that try to trick very stupid people into doing very stupid things so that it appears as though we have a white supremacist and an Islamic extremist problem. Now, the sad thing is when they do this, they are getting some very stupid people, like this Blood Tribe. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stupid, angry, young white men and probably young white boys that are probably very angry and probably like what they're hearing. But this is Hollywood-style American History X bullshit. This is not a National Socialist group. Number one, if this was a National Socialist group, it would be something political, like, calling itself a National Socialist group. Instead, it calls itself Blood Tribe, which sounds more, if anything, it sounds like a prison gang, okay, or some sort of a gang. It does not sound like a, how can I put this? It does not sound like a legitimate, viable political organization, such as even the American Nazi Party, the National Socialist Movement, the American Black Shirts. There's a lot of legitimate either PACs, like political action committees, or parties that have legitimate names. Like, for example, the National Socialist Party, or the National Socialist White People's Party, to even if you're putting a racial thing to it. That's no different than the League of Women Voters or the Christian whatever, this Christian voter group or that Christian voter group, or the League of Angry Catholics or whatever, or the Women's Temperance Movement or what have you. My point is, if you're going to try to win power in the United States, you're going to try to do so legitimately, and you're going to try to do so in a way that doesn't frighten people. Okay? Now, another thing that you need to understand is this is not how, if anybody that's seen Antifa rallies, this is why I said this about Proud Boys. This is not how National Socialists behave. This is not how conservatives behave. This is how liberals behave, radical liberals like Antifa. If you've ever been to a National Socialist rally or a Ku Klux Klan meeting, you will see that the people that show up to protest them, the Antifa people, are the ones that behave like this. This is not how the National Socialists or conservatives or Ku Klux Klansmen, etc. This is not how they behave. This is how the people that show up to protest them behave. Okay? Anybody that's been to those things knows that for a fact. Okay? That's a factual statement, and you know it is if you've ever been to any of those things. Now, another thing is, people are saying, they want to say, another thing is the way they appear is very Hollywood neo-Nazi-esque. What do I mean? This is not how, okay, your average National Socialist, your average Klansman, your average regular white person is just that. They're just a regular guy or girl They don't stick out at all. They go to work every day. They might be a lawyer. They might be a doctor. They might work at a deli. Okay? They might work at the pizza place down the road. But literally 9 times out of 10, it's the same thing with Satanists or Wiccans or anything or Buddhists. Okay? Nobody is going to know if somebody is a, quote, neo-Nazi unless you're made aware of it by the person. Okay? It's not a common thing to be aware. They're just regular people 9 times out of 10. Okay? Now, that being said, one of the things that these people chanted was, "We're everywhere." That is not true. That is a scare tactic used to terrify minorities and white women into being afraid of regular heterosexual white men. That's all that is. So what does the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, say about Blood Tribe? Who knows? Maybe the Anti-Defamation League is behind this crap. Who knows? Blood Tribe is a growing neo-Nazi group that claims to have chapters across the United States and Canada. Blood Tribe members are followers of Christopher Pohlhaus, whose white supremacist beliefs include elements of esoteric Hitlerism, which exalts Hitler as a deity, and Wodenism, a variant of Norse paganism. Blood Tribe presents itself as a hardcore white supremacist group and rejects white supremacists who call for softer optics. The reason people are calling for softer optics, quote, softer optics, is because they're not complete fucking retards and they don't want the feds to move on them. Okay? The only reason to present oneself in such an over-the-top circus-type manner would be to get a reaction from law enforcement. Which I might say there hasn't been very much. This is just like the Boogaloo Boys, which was another, in my opinion, PsyOp. At best, if these are not PsyOps, this is some pretty hardcore political LARPing. Okay? Blood Tribe members emphasize hyper-masculinity. The group does not allow female members. Okay? Think about how absolutely stupid that is. Okay? If you want to make more white people, wouldn't you want to allow female members? And if you're really trying to cause political change, wouldn't you want to get as many members as you could that are conducive to the furtherance of your message? And being that white women would be white mothers that have contact with white children that could teach these white children the values of the quote-unquote blood tribe, would you not want as many white women to be followers of the blood tribe and teaching their children the values of the blood tribe if this was a legit thing? See, there's so many things about this that make no sense. Blood Tribe sees themselves as both the last remaining bulwark against the enemies of the white race and the only path to a white ethno-state. Okay, now this is the thing with the whole white ethno-state thing. There already is one. It's called Iceland. But the point is, that's not going to be a reality in the United States. Just not a real thing. It's not going to happen. And maybe, if this is legit, maybe these people really do see it as that. I don't think this is legit at all. At all. But if this is how you get a white ethno-state, how exactly? By marching around and screaming stuff and acting like Antifa? How is that going to result in an ethno-state? The best way to effectively get a white ethno-state is to continuously, and consistently petition the United Nations under the fact that the white people of the United States are a unique group of people and that we have a right to self-determination under the United Nations Charter. That's how you do it. You don't run around screaming wild bullshit, okay? That's how you would go about that. Since becoming a membership organization in 2021, Blood Tribe has been increasingly active holding anti-LGBTQ+ demonstrations and private gatherings. Now, they're holding anti-LGBTQ+ demonstrations. Okay, now if they see race to be the primary thing and not... Okay, this is my point. They're holding anti-LGBTQ+ demonstrations and private gatherings. They're not allowing white women into their group. Okay? If you really wanted to positively affect your group of people, you would be encouraging people to have more children and not be really being concerned about the LGBTQ+ demonstrations that do not really affect white people, okay? And why doesn't it affect white people? Because if you were raising your children with the values and you were getting more female members, instead of excluding female members that could homeschool their children and keep them out of the fray of the LGBTQ+ story times and whatnot, this would be a moot point. And this is what the outside world is doing, not what you're doing inside your community. There's no semblance of community building or anything that would be, in the interest of white people, as you see with literally every other group that has tried to be a viable political and or social movement for white people, or any people for that matter. Blood Tribe is a, quote, neo-Nazi group founded and led by Christopher Polhaas, a.k.a. Hammer, a former U.S. Marine turned tattoo artist. In 2020, while living in San Antonio, Texas, Polhaas cultivated an online following by selling white supremacist propaganda and gear and posting video podcasts during which he lectured followers about fitness and the need for them to participate in a last stand, a righteous war. This is the kind of talk in order to get what? Attention from law enforcement and to encourage stupid people. This is what you don't understand. So you might be asking, why do the feds try to trick people into committing acts of violence, okay? Like the attack on Fort Dix was a Fed thing. That wouldn't have happened if the feds didn't mislead a bunch of people into doing it. So why? Why do they do this? Why do they try to trick young Muslim guys and young white guys into doing dumb shit? Okay? And that would be another reason to not allow women. You don't want women because if white guys hook up with white women and have a white family, they're going to be less likely to do dumb shit because they have to worry about their white family, which would be the most beneficial thing for white people. But the thing is, the reason that the only reason you would be trying to do this, or the reason the feds do this, the reason the feds do this is because it validates their funding. If they weren't constantly tricking people into doing these things, and it's the same reason nobody wants to stop crime. Okay, so if the federal government wasn't constantly radicalizing young Muslim and young white men to do stupid things against our country, there would be no funding because there would be no reason to fund these vast anti-white and anti-Muslim things that the federal government does in order to catch people doing things that they would not ordinarily be doing without the behavior of the federal government pushing them towards these things, okay? It's the same thing with the Oath Keepers. There was some Pennsylvania sheriff that got caught working for the feds, and then they turned their back on him, said he wasn't involved. So, as his following grew, Polhaas began referring to them as blood tribe. In 2021, as Polhaus networked with other white supremacist groups and recruited new followers, blood tribe evolved into a membership organization. In May 2022, Polhaus moved from Texas to Maine, where he purchased 10 acres of land and attempted to build an encampment for white supremacists. In late October 2023, he sold the land, claiming militant leftists had made the location too dangerous to fulfill its purpose. Now, this is the whole thing. If you're going to make an encampment for white people, maybe go low-key on it. Maybe don't say it's for white supremacists. Maybe keep it under wraps a little bit. Maybe use softer optics. Maybe he's being bribed by somebody to be doing this, okay? So in March 2023, Blood Tribe held their first public demonstration, protesting a drag queen story hour in Wadsworth, Ohio. The attendees, including Polhaus, wore matching red sweaters, waved swastika flags, and held a banner that read, "There will be blood tribe." Now listen. There will be blood. Okay, this is what they're saying. Why would you say that? Why would you say something that could so easily be taken as a threat? The only thing you're doing by doing this is encouraging law enforcement to act against you. You wouldn't be, and there's not very much of that going on, surprisingly enough, almost as though law enforcement is working with these people. Okay, Blood Tribe expanded in the months following this demonstration, establishing channels or chapters across the U.S. and Canada. Ideology. Blood Tribe's goal is to normalize the swastika. Okay, if you want to normalize the swastika, why don't you point out that the swastika is in common use? I just read an article about transforming the vibrations of your home with the use of swastikas during Diwali, okay? If you want to normalize the swastika, bring up the fact that this is a normal, non-aggressive, non-racist symbol utilized by all of the dharmic religions of Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, and Sikhism, as well as many Native American tribes. And do that. You do not normalize a symbol that, by the way, is a very common symbol, and as I said, it's utilized by all of the dharmic religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism, okay, as well as some of the Romani people. The gypsies use it a lot. So if you want to normalize it, there are easier, more, socially acceptable, less likely to make people hate white people sort of ways to do it, okay? Usher in a resurgence of Nazi ideas, and ultimately build a white ethno-state occupied, controlled, and led by Aryans. Now, okay, so where is this? What's the plan? You're just going to accomplish this by screaming a lot? Where is this supposed white ethno-state going to be? Come on. What's the plan, man? Okay? This is absolutely absurd. Some members, Polhaus in particular, dabbled in esoteric Hitlerism, a phrase used to describe variations of neo-Nazism, in which Adolf Hitler is considered divine or godlike. Polhaus has claimed that Hitler was a reincarnation of Wotan. Wotan, for those that don't know, which I'm sure everybody knows now, if you're a practitioner of Sikhs Wicca, which is Anglo-Saxon Wicca, or an Azatrur, okay, or some other form of Norse pagan nonsense, you'll know what Wotan is, or Wotan. It's the Anglo-Saxon version of, or English version of Odin. Other blood tribe members have asserted a similar connection between Wotanism and Hitler, including one who announced in a July 2023 Telegram post, "I believe he was an incarnation of Wotan." Okay. Now, I don't doubt that they're getting members that really believe this shit. I don't doubt that at all. What I doubt is the sincerity of the overall movement and the fact that it is being utilized. I believe it's being utilized to encourage minorities and white women to fear white heterosexual men. I still have no idea what the LGBTQ plus crap has to do with white people. I mean, it's kind of like this. Okay. So if you really were a white separatist group trying to separate your people from the general population, you would be focusing on getting as many white couples together as possible, to have as many white children as possible, to homeschool those white children, and to help those white children be guarded against the radical liberalism of society. You would not be wasting your time trying to change society. You would be trying to build your own socially cohesive group. And I don't see any of that going on. Not even in as much as, let's say, I'm trying to think of the really crappy National Socialist groups. But you don't see any of that happening here. If this was a white separatist group, they would not be playing around with all this LGBTQ crap. They would be focusing on building a socially cohesive group. Now, if they were a political group, they were trying to create political or social change, they would be presenting themselves in a way that was more politically viable. Okay, so they're presenting themselves as a hardcore, oh God, I'm not rereading this crap. Since transitioning to a membership organization, Blood Tribe has grown considerably, claiming, now what is this? Why do they want membership? I'll tell you why they want membership. They want written records that they can hand over to the feds of who you are, where you live, what you look like, probably what your religion is, and everything the hell else. Okay? That's why they're a membership organization. I would not join this. This reeks of an operation by the feds. Okay? Blood Tribe has grown considerably, claiming 7 regional chapters. It is, in its short existence, Blood Tribe has cultivated a militant and exclusive ethos that appeals to hardcore white supremacists. Again, this doesn't appeal to anybody. This appeals to people with the mentality of a 6-year-old. Okay? This is not appealing to anybody that wants any kind of future for the white race. Period. Moving forward. Neo-Nazis parade swastika flags in La Florida, chanting, "We are everywhere." So people hold swastika flags as neo-Nazi group Blood Tribe and Goyim Defense League, which is another Fed op. If you believe that's not a Fed op, you're a moron. Hold a rally on September 2nd, 2023. They were marching in Florida, founded, blah, blah, blah. This is just going over it again. But, yeah, this is the thing. Where is the resistance to this? Nobody's bringing that up. There's not really any resistance to this. If this was a Klan meeting, like a Klan rally, or if this was a legitimate National Socialist gathering, the ANP, the American Nazi Party, canceled holding public rallies because of the danger it posed to their members, to the general public, and to the counter-protesters that were showing up, and to the police that were supposed to be guarding the things. So the American Nazi Party, the only legitimate National Socialist group I know of in the United States. At least last I remember, I haven't really checked anything in a bunch of years, but they quit holding public rallies and discouraged people from going to public rallies simply because it was no longer safe for them. It was no longer safe for the police. It was no longer safe for the counter-protesters, and it was no longer safe for the general public because of the behavior of Antifa. Where is the resistance to this? Where's Antifa? Okay? Where are the police? I don't see, where's the opposition? Now, Jimmy Dore, who I do consider a leftist, is going to explain why he believes this is a Fed-op. And I think it is, too. It's a PsyOp by the feds. It's either by the feds or by Trump. And I'm going to get into why I think it might be by Trump, because it serves two purposes with Trump. It gets both sides of his idiots together.
Hey, guess what, Kurt? The feds are back at it again.
What?
They're in Madison, Wisconsin. So
oh yeah, I have stuff.
They released the January 6th video that shows that this was all concocted by the Democrat and the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
And like clockwork, the next day this happens. By the way, what are those guys doing in Madison? Shouldn't they be in Ukraine fighting?
Yeah. Guys, we need men. You look in your mid-40s, you're right the right age.
And they got their flags and uniform colors reversed. Who's running this PsyOp anyway?
Wait, is that the same, that ball guy? Will you go back just a little bit? That ball guy. Okay, who's next to that ball guy? Who's that? That's not that same kid from the Stupid Patriot Front, right?
Probably.
Really? That's very strange. And the bald guy...
Is that the FTX guy? I don't know.
The FTX kid. No, the bald guy...
It's DMX, bitch.
He looks like, and it's blurry, but doesn't he? He looks like the same guy from, like, We Like Biden because he sends missiles to Ukraine.
Oh, okay. I'm going to show that guy.
Yeah, and I didn't think they were connected, but I think that's him.
That does look like him.
But who's the guy with the teenage pube beard next to him? Is he a leader in this movement? I saw
These bumbling retards. Probably don't even know.
You could turn off the volume. We don't need to hear that kind of bad language.
Yeah. Hey,
I apologize for that language.
Well, that's another thing. The over-the-top language this is language meant to encourage, to engender violence and engender hatred against the people marching. They are not trying to convince anyone of anything. They are not. I mean, this is just idiocy. There is nothing taking place here that looks like a political or social movement. It looks like a Halloween costume parade at an elementary school with adults.
Ukrainian language that he just had.
There's no need to use that kind of language. Anyone who's been to Madison, Wisconsin can tell you it's a real hotbed of far right-wing activity. And if you haven't been to Madison, that was sarcasm.
They're not even going to go fist fight them. That's how much of a not like that town it is.
Yeah, that's right.
But seriously, ask yourself, if you've ever been to a rally, like a National Socialist rally or anything like that, where is the opposition? Do you see any opposition?
And it seems like no one gives a shit.
Okay.
Everyone knows this is an op. No one cares. This isn't bothering anybody. My God, let's just settle this already. 61% of people think it's feds. 12% think it's feds. 15%. Boy, tough vote.
I didn't think it was feds before when I saw that bald guy because he looked so methy.
Here's that. Is this the bald guy you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, though. What they do is they will, number one, if you see some of the people in the military anymore, it's not, the military now is not the military of the 80s. You get a lot of people strung out on God knows what in the goddamn military these days. And you also get gang members from everything from the Aryan Nations to the Bloods and the Crips and whatnot. I did a video series about that, about the gangs in the military and law enforcement. But the thing is, what a lot of times what they'll do is they'll get one of these little sons of one of these guys, and they'll say, hey, we'll reduce your sentence if you play the game with us and dress up like you're in a Halloween parade for preschoolers, and say some things that we want you to say. But like I said, what are they trying to convince people of here? They're banning women from their group, and they're focusing on LGBTQ stuff, which does not seem... Now, don't get me wrong. That would be an important thing. That would be an important thing for National Socialists to oppose, but it would not be even close to a primary thing. You would be focused primarily on the furtherance, the continuation of white people. And in order to achieve that, you would not ban white women from your organization. It all seems kind of silly, right? It almost seems like it's fake.
The guy his face was green from the tattoos.
Christopher, there's a presidential race going on right now. Are you going to vote in 2024? What do you think's going to happen with
My vote is useless. I think Biden's better than Trump because he sends rockets to Ukraine.
Now that very much there, that could very well be a PsyOp run by the Trump administration or Trump loyalists inside the Trump administration. Okay? So keep that in mind. You have to remember that this is clearly, in my opinion, this is in favor of Trump, not Biden.
I think Biden's better than Trump because he sends rockets to Ukraine.
So what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, look at Biden. Biden is a national socialist. Biden is on our side. So what does that tell everybody that's the 99.9% of Americans that are not going to support this shit? They're going to say, oh, I'm going to vote for Trump because Trump is the well, Trump's definitely more pro-Zionist than Biden. But the point is that this is to work. Now, I didn't even think about that. I'm just realizing this now. This might even be a Ruski operation. This might be being run by the NKVD or whatever, the KGB replacement. But this is something to get Trump back in my opinion.
I think Biden's better than Trump because he sends rockets to Ukraine. I think Biden...
See, you have to remember, this is to get people to support Trump, because what they're saying is if you support Biden, you support white supremacists. That's what this is about here. They're trying to make it look like if you support Biden, you support white supremacists. And not your family-friendly kind of white supremacists. No, these tattooed freak white supremacists, okay? That look like they're members of a Latin American criminal gang.
I think Biden's better than Trump because he sends rockets to Ukraine.
Christopher, there's a president.
Like, that guy said the R word, but do you see like how he said it like someone who's like slow? He says rockets Ukraine.
Yes.
Like a little happy, like a happy kid that heard he should say that.
Now, what I am saying here, what I would say, these are probably people that have been offered reduced sentences or something of that nature in return to act in a completely ridiculous manner that is not conducive to the furtherance of a positive message, and this does work because this rallies up both sides of Trump's idiotic base. This rallies up the parts of Trump's base that are pro-white into thinking, oh, wow, there's a lot of pro-white people around. I'm going to vote Trump again because he has another crack at whatever that he didn't do the first time. It also rallies up the people that are anti-Biden because Biden isn't a Zionist and isn't pro-Putin and things of that nature. So you have to understand this works very well for Trump. Now, I do believe that I don't think they're Fed agents, with the exception of Pohlhaus himself. Okay? I don't think any of these people are Fed agents, but I do think that this is an operation being run by somebody. If it's not the feds or Trump loyalists in the federal government, it's being run by maybe the NKVD or maybe even the Mossad. okay? But somebody's doing this, okay? And somebody wants Trump back in so that Trump can continue doing what Trump was doing when Trump was in, which is supporting the enemies of America.
Yes, exactly. Did I do good?
Like, it really is.
Christopher, there's a presidential race going on right now. Are you going to vote in 2024? What do you think's going to happen with
My
all
vote is useless. I think Biden's better than Trump because he sends rockets to Ukraine.
Whoa, Stone Cold Steve
There's
Austin. He's like Stone Cold Steve Austin.
These guys look like they're dressing up for Halloween.
Yeah.
That's how you would dress up for Halloween. This is definitely...
What's great, I actually did not watch this. I wanted to react fresh to this, but he said exactly what I said, which is, look at this. It looks like a child's Halloween costume parade at an elementary school where the theme was, how can I look like the most ridiculously fake white supremacist?
dressing up for Halloween.
Yeah.
That's how you would dress up for Halloween. This is definitely...
The guy's name is Christopher.
Now, and I want to be clear, as far as I know, now I don't know this to be true, but I'm pretty sure Jimmy Dore is a liberal. I know he supported Barack Obama, but he might be like me at this point. I don't really see myself as a liberal or a conservative. I'm just pro-American, okay? All I care about is my country. That's it. I'm pro-American, liberal, conservative. Doesn't really matter to me. As long as the policies are pro-American, and I do like Biden more than Trump, but it's because his policies are more pro-American.
By the way, Ukraine doesn't need rockets. They need actual guys to fire the rockets.
Hey, Christopher.
Why don't you put your money where your swastika is and go over to Ukraine?
Let's see.
So here's the... Remember this? Remember this? Remember this, Kurt?
That's Patriot Front.
Yeah.
So have they become further radicalized by their arrests? And now they've turned into this group?
I like how they let this guy keep his back.
Now, Patriots Front, I think, is legit, but I do think it's been infiltrated by feds. I think that, and I also don't agree with that. I did a response video. One of my commenters asked me what I thought about Patriots Front. I really think that these things are very stupid. If you really want to affect political change, shut your fucking mouths, join the Republican or Democratic Party, and vote for the candidates that you know are going to put forth policies that are better for you and your people. It's that simple. But first and foremost, start by shutting your fucking mouth. But you're not going to cause political change by diffusing your vote and not voting for candidates that are in your best interest, which is exactly what these people are doing. If anything, they're taking votes away from people that would be in the best interest of them and the country itself. That's what happened with Tulsi Gabbard. Everybody that should have voted for Tulsi Gabbard voted for Bernie Sanders and fucked her out of the primary. Okay? And that's the thing, is if you really want to cause change, we have a two-party system in this country. If you don't compete, if you don't work as a Democrat or you don't work as a Republican, you don't work. Okay? So all this bullshit with Patriots Front and this party and that party and these things that clearly are not parties, all this is doing is diffusing the vote and fucking up the ability of any positive change and causing stagnation. And what it is causing is confusion, stagnation, and infighting on one side, and allowing the other side, represented in both the Democratic and Republican parties, to completely fuck up the country. And that's what's been going on for quite a while.
Pack.
They're just stay there. Yeah.
You're gonna handcuff you, but dude, I need that backpack.
Check the backpack for secret knives and stuff. Usually you can order those.
And let him keep his backpack.
Yeah.
And he's not even handcuffed. It looks like he's just holding his hands.
See the cops stand there?
And why would the cops be standing away from them?
As if to say, Go ahead. There's plenty to see here. Take a good long look.
Now, that actually is true. It's funny because Jimmy Dore pointed it out. That's why sometimes you need a couple heads. You need a couple sets of eyes to see these things. But if you look, it's like they're posing. If you have any deer hunters in your family that see people posing with like 10-point bucks or whatever, that's what this looks like. The police are like, look at us. This is a photo op. Okay. Look how great we are. We caught all these big, mean white people here.
Be standing away from them.
As if to say, go ahead, there's plenty to see here. Take a good long look. Everybody get in line. Take a good look.
Show's just starting, folks.
Show's starting. Come on in.
Come on in.
All right, everybody's looked. Who's going to look? Let's get them back in the U-Haul.
They were all in the U-Haul.
So Patriot Front got pulled over. They were all piled in the U-Haul, and they are all detained.
And what the hell kind of way is this to transport people? In U-Hauls? In U-Hauls. These people don't own cars or buses. They couldn't have rented a bus or something of that nature. This is I mean, none of this makes any goddamn sense.
Whatever happened with this? Like, what did they get charged with? Riding in a U-Haul? What did they get charged with? Wearing masks in a U-Haul?
I mean, they look like, as I said at the time, they look like they're legitimately there for the Gay Pride Parade.
Yeah.
They like those.
And what I think is funny is this, like, again, with Patriots Front, what is the focus with the LGBTQ stuff? This is a non-issue if you work on building community amongst your own community, okay? I'm not understanding what their obsession is with the gay stuff.
There for the Gay Pride Parade.
Yeah.
They like those haircuts.
The entire world unites to condemn Israel's war crimes in Gaza. Then all of a sudden, Osama bin Laden goes viral, and these costume freaks are deployed. What a coinky-dink.
You want to hear a thing I just found on Substack about that Blood Tribe, which is that Fed group that we were just looking at?
Yeah.
Christopher Polhouse. He's a former Marine. He burst onto the scene with a following that seemed to materialize out of nowhere.
So this guy's going to tell you everything that I just told you. Something about this guy smells like a Fed.
Just looking at?
Yeah.
Christopher Polhouse. He's a former Marine. He burst onto the scene with a following that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Soon he was buying property in Maine and holding events in Florida, but who's funding him? A closer look reveals a connection of Fred Ramey, a multi-convicted felon with a history of campaigning for Democrats like Pete Buttigieg and Andrew Yang. The son you're just looking at?
Yeah.
Christopher Polhouse. He's a former Marine. He burst onto the scene with a following that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Soon he was buying property in Maine and holding events in Florida, but who's funding him? A closer look reveals a connection of Fred Ramey, a multi-convicted felon with a history of campaigning for Democrats like Pete Buttigieg.
And you might say, wait, but this guy campaigns for Democrats. Wouldn't that take the whole Trump connection out? No, because remember, Trump's two advisors, Ivanka and Jared Kushner, are legitimate New York City-style radical leftists, okay? Keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that the guy that did Obamacare was a Romney guy. He's the guy that did Romney Care. So what you got going on here is you got the left, what I would call the left, utilizing these things in order to pay these people or to reduce their sentences or in some way incentivize these people to act like a bunch of retards at a Halloween parade.
A closer look reveals a connection of Fred Ramey, a multi-convicted felon with a history of campaigning for Democrats like Pete Buttigieg and Andrew Yang.
Now that might explain it too. Pete Buttigieg. Now I keep saying, what is this focus on the gays? It seems like a non-issue, or at least it doesn't seem like an issue that would be of this much importance to a group of people claiming the things that they're claiming, unless they're trying to make everybody afraid of them, like gays, white women, minorities, And like I said, what are they trying to convince people of? Have they put out any sort of rhetoric, any sort of ideology? Are they holding any type of speeches? Are they trying to convince people of anything? Or are they just walking around dressed like Halloween trick-or-treaters?
With a history of campaigning for Democrats like Pete Buttigieg and Andrew Yang. The sudden
Yang-
friendship between Ramey and
The Yang Gang.
Full House raises questions about the group's true intentions. So they're
That's
not all
interesting.
feds. A lot of them are they work for campaigns and
Yeah.
DNC and shit.
Yeah.
That's why I think that
So
America.
that's what I was thinking. Maybe it's somebody working with, the Trump campaign. Because they're trying to get you to believe that Joe Biden is a bad guy because these people support Joe Biden, but yet they don't support Trump. They even said they think Biden is better than Trump. Okay? And they also said they think everything's rigged, but they think Biden's better than Trump. Okay, so they're trying to promote this stolen election scam crap, and at the same time plant another seed in your mind that Biden is better than Trump because Trump didn't want to give weapons to Ukraine, but Biden did. So they're trying to get you to think, well, Biden must be a bad guy if these bad dudes with facial tattoos support him. You get what I'm saying? Now, do they support Biden? I doubt it.
The first kid is a DNC.
So what? So here, why would they do that, Jimmy? So what they want to do is scare you
Yep.
into thinking that, oh my God, Trump and his crazy Nazis are going to take over. I
Well, no, I don't think that. I think you have it backwards there, Jimmy.
better vote for Biden.
Hey, that's what we should have a show, Jimmy and Jimmy, going back and forth between each other. What do you think, Jimmy?
That's all this is. That's all the Patriot Front is. That's all those Nazis are. That's it.
Remember the fake, the Lincoln Project had fake tiki torch people?
Yes.
They got caught. They were so inept. They all
Just like the pro-Israel march, and they had to pay people to go to it.
Someone told me a story. Was it Eddie? He told me a story about.
Well, that's the bottom line. What you have to understand is a lot of this shit is people being paid to do these things. These people are not doing these things of their own free will. They're being paid and hired, okay? When you saw the thing at Unite the Right, you could tell that was a staged insurrectionist type of thing. Now, when you see things come about organically or through the Fed pushing people, you see unfettered craziness.
Jones, someone throwing coffee in his face in Austin.
No.
And it was somebody he paid. He would put a want ad out.
Well, just like that
someone to
Michael
do that.
Rappaport, that video where he got the
Yeah.
snowball in the head, he set that up.
Yeah, right. Like people just doing their own thing will do PsyOps just to boost themselves.
Yes.
At every level of society, somebody's doing some weird CIA deep state shit, but just for their own personal benefit many times.
Hey, come see us doing a live stand-up show or be in Burbank.
So another way you can tell that this is horse shit is because it's actually being covered. What do I mean by that? Anybody familiar with National Socialism or what people call far-right politics knows that if anything really is National Socialist, it doesn't get covered. Okay? So this is hate groups get around lack of news coverage with wild publicity stunts. So George Lincoln Rockwell had a problem thanks mainly to the efforts of Jewish groups to dissuade coverage. Most newspapers simply would not give Rockwell's fledgling American Nazi Party any attention. So the commander came up with a solution: impossible to ignore publicity stunts from spot-lit Nazi headquarters outside of Washington, D.C., meaning from his own headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, he would have publicity stunts. Okay? So what you have to understand, though, is the way these people are receiving way too much coverage from the media and way too little resistance from the police, Antifa, and the public, and in general. Nobody is interfering with these people. So this is a member of Blood Tribe, Kent McLellan, also known as Boniface. That's another thing. Why do they have gang names instead of, number one, why do they have gang names instead of ranks? Okay, if they're going to promote themselves as some kind of National Socialist Party, why don't they have ranks like Rockwell's party? And number two, why do they have these gang names? Okay, so in Florida, blah, 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 he claimed that he fought in Mariupol, but he didn't. He was in Florida. You can read this on your own. And that's all for this video.